Hey guys, I am trying to see. Okay, bye.
Don't let anybody treat you like
that was kind of loud. That was very loud. Live on YouTube. I gotta figure out. Oh, hey guys! Wow, that was fast. How are you guys doing? I know it's been a while. Let's see. Oh, haha! I can see myself live. Oh, haha! I can see myself live. Oh, haha! I can see myself. That's wild. How is everybody? So I know it's different. Usually we're live on a Friday night, but today we are live on a Saturday night. Let's see how much different this kind of works with normal and how well you guys do. Thank you for the hearts. So I think I just shared it on everything. So, okay. So on TikTok, you see those things like the Labubus? I got this one and I forgot what this is. The Let's Sven. I forgot what that's. Cindy no no. Yeah, Cindy no no. But look how cute she is. She's so flippin' adorable that I was just like, I love her. I love her. And oh, awesome. That worked. So if you guys are in the Discord, you guys would have got that we went live. But I don't know. Did it do it's supposed to self promo? No. Announcement? No. Media? Yeah, it didn't work. Interesting. I gotta work on that. Lily, are you in here? I don't know if she's in here. If not, I'll have to. Okay. It didn't ping the Discord. Thank you. So we're just gonna wait a little bit and see who shows up and how this works before we get going. There's actually a paranormal site that's currently live on TikTok that I was actually thinking if we shared the screen to go into, just to see what's going on because they're live. So Santa Paranormal. Let's go in. Let's see. Okay. How do I do this? I need to figure out how to do this again. Because I want to see what you guys are saying. Okay.
I'm good, Jessica. I can't complain.
Okay. Wait, how do I do this?
Chilling, you know? Can I feel you?
Oh,
No,
man, that's
Spirit,
cool.
I cannot feel you.
Ah. How do we do this? How do we do this, y'all? Wait, which one do I type? Okay. Let's see.
clock lost in time.
Where? Right there, Spirit. Clock lost in time.
Is that a dog?
Isn't that crazy? Thank you, little devil. Great thrifting find right there.
Infest.
Infest?
Infest.
What's infested?
That is an animal. Okay, I thought so.
They are. They're very curious about that clock. Yeah, I appreciate those tap shares and gifts. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give him some taps. Oops. What did I?
Just need to get a pendulum for it. I mean, a weight for it. I have one weight, Jezebel to play it for real.
Okay. Thanks, sis.
We're at the breakfast state. Zahid.
Sound of children crying.
The sound of children
The sound
crying.
of children crying. Yo.
Why are the children
Was
crying?
that screaming? Bruh.
After the war.
After the war? You talking about the Civil War?
I didn't.
I have a theory.
Where are we?
With Edward.
Kaya.
Why was I muted? I just said we were watching you on my YouTube
Him
live.
using displaced people from the Civil
Why
War.
was I muted?
Little tactical.
Who's Sharon?
Y'all, I was muted for just saying we're watching you on YouTube live. Like what?
What?
Yeah, I was literally just muted for that. That is so weird. I don't even think it was the ghost. I think it was their
Spirits,
mod.
who's Sharon?
That's so wild. That's so freaking wild. Like,
whoa.
What?
Yo, Jen with the fast cheers. Guilt. This place was destroyed in the Revolutionary War. Yo, Jen with the fast cheers. Ooh, way. This place was an outpost back then. Oh, wait. Jen coming in with more fast chairs.
That's
What do you need? Yo, little devil, you playing for real?
I'm not sure. This is just interesting. Do we want to stay, you guys, or do we want to go somewhere else?
So to get the most comprehensive history about this building, what you need to do is type in Westchester, Breck Estate into newspapers.com and pull up.
Because we literally didn't even say anything wrong. We just said, hey, we're watching you on YouTube live. I don't think that was a self-promo. I was just letting you know that we're watching you. Like, we're watching you. Like, watch. I don't understand. I really don't understand. Let's go here. Is it not a person with a hoodie? Like, clothes just went flying. Let's see. What is? Oops. Did not mean to have. I'm just saying. Like, first there's clothes flying over here. And then, like, what?
I come upstairs. Weird smell. Smells like perfume. Something that I don't wear. I know what my perfumes smell like. No one's been up here for like 3 or 4 days, except me, obviously.
Oh my
I hear
God.
weird noise in the kitchen.
Um,
I come in the kitchen. What's that noise? I don't know. I investigate. Door ajar. Why is the door ajar? I don't touch this door. No one's been up here except for myself for like 3 or 4 days. And I know it was closed the last time I came up here. Also, oh, it's raining. We
to
have
get.
a ring camera. We actually have cameras all over our house. Camera has caught nothing. No motion detected. Okay. Weird noise in kitchen. Still happening.
Honestly, I
Dolls.
don't think we've heard anything
Accounted
crazy
for.
besides the Roomba
Attic.
in a while.
Locked. I haven't been up there in like probably over a week.
If not
'cause
haunted,
it's
why
been
haunted
freaking
shape?
me out.
Somebody wrote.
Vibes in the living room. Weird. Weird noise in kitchen. Freaking me out.
Sorry, guys. I'm just
Office.
trying to
Always
get
hearing a knocking sound.
people.
Of course, it's probably
here.
not going to do it. Now that I'm in here,
Right? If they're in the
every
closet.
time I come into this
well,
area,
cabinet,
I
not
always
closet.
hear a knocking sound. Door ajar. This is a closet that leads to another room. I always keep it
Exactly.
wide open. I keep every door up in this bitch open. Creepy jewelry box that likes to play on its own.
Did it restart?
Closed. Thank God.
Okay, it didn't.
But also not playing when it opens, which, oh, okay, there it is. Thank you. Vibes off.
Not gonna lie.
Very off.
I wondered. Hold on.
I come upstairs. Weird smell. Smells like
Okay.
perfume. Something that I don't wear. I know what my perfumes smell like. No one's been up here for like 3 or 4 days, except me, obviously. I hear weird noise in the kitchen.
Hold on. I'm trying to see. Is there a way we can do this pretty well? I don't think so. Because I don't think it's gonna work. Yes, it is my weapon of choice tonight. And it is the weapon I want to see if it will work. I don't think it's gonna work. Yeah, I was trying to see. Like, I don't think I can get this to go down any lower. I don't know how to get this to do it. I don't think it's gonna work. Does that look funny? Like, how funny does that look? Like, what if I went this way? Like, how funny does that look? Like that. Does that look better? Like, I don't know what else to do. I'm like, I'm done drinking this. Like, okay, look, if I turn this that way. Hey, other person, does that look better? Like, do you think that would work? So what I'm trying to do is Well, let's try it. All right. Well, let's see how this works. Hopefully I can. I don't know. We'll see how well this works because I don't really know what else to do. Hopefully I can get people. I might be able to see it. Let's do. This one says don't watch
In the
it.
following video,
So we have
a
to watch
concerned
it.
mother is recording her daughter, who just told her that a guy is inside her room.
What guy?
The guy.
The guy is at the door.
Oh, sorry.
Guy.
Can we go together?
Yeah.
Do you want to open the door or you want mommy to open it?
I want mommy to open it.
Okay.
Hey, TikTok.
He's in there.
The guy?
Yeah. He's scary.
He's scary.
Wait, I just realized. Can TikTok even hear
It's okay.
this? I just realized I don't even think TikTok could even hear this.
No one appears to be in this room. Yet strangely, Jessica's daughter sees someone who she says is scary. Now, despite there being nothing alarming,
There we go.
there is something in this room that's worth noting. The playhouse in the center is a space where Jessica's daughter often plays in. Most of her time is spent playing or eating inside, which is why Jessica decided to renovate the playhouse.
For a house tour of Emma's playhouse. Then Emma, I'm going to show them the door, okay? She really wanted it to have a doorbell camera like our front door. So I put on.
From the color of the house to the same doorbell, every detail was inspired by the actual house they live in. However, only a few days after remodeling, something strange had occurred. On the night of January 3rd, 2025, the doorbell camera started to record. Now, this only happens when someone is at the door and near the doorbell. But upon
Yo,
being
that scared
activated,
me.
the camera recorded this.
Yo! No, 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 no. Is it gonna turn? I'm scared. This never freaks me out. Oof. Yo. I just feel like the head is gonna turn. I'm like watching through TikTok. My hand's shaking. I don't even care. Yeah. I don't. Uh-uh. I swear. At the head. I just feel like it's gonna like
In
turn.
the following video, a concerned mother is recording her daughter,
No, it
who
started
just
over.
told her that a guy is inside her room.
What guy?
The guy.
Okay, so how do we feel about that one? Paranormal Activity? Let's see. Did you see that photo? There was like something over here. That's crazy. This one said don't watch alone. That's the one we just watched alone. Maybe I should read. Um, imagine. Okay, let's listen to this one.
I had a follower send me their mimic
Oh,
slash
really?
doppelganger story, and it is terrifying. According to her, it all kicked off in 2021, and her husband would be gone a lot because he was in the military. He would be like out in the field for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And during those times, she would just feel a presence in her home. At the time, this really freaked her out because she was pregnant with their first child, their daughter. And so she would light prayer candles every single night before she went to bed. It would just give her comfort. And she would just leave them lit throughout the night. And one night she wakes up and they're all out. And she thinks it's weird, but she has to go to the bathroom. So she kind of just ignores it, gets up. And as she's going to the bathroom, she hears what sounds like a woman singing from her daughter's nursery, which is literally right next to the bathroom, like singing, humming. She said it sounded like a lullaby. The nursery at the time was just being used for storage because, of course, she was pregnant. When she leaves the bathroom, like rushing to her daughter's nursery, the humming is just getting louder and louder and louder, and it doesn't stop until she actually opens up the door. Obviously, there was no one there humming. And about 2 weeks later, her husband is home from the field. Well, her husband had just finished using the bathroom. He's kind of coming out to the living room, and when he sees her, he like jumps out of his skin. He's so scared. And she like laughs. She just thinks like maybe she startled him. And he says to her, "Did you just sit down there?" And she says, "No, why?" Like she's on the couch with her cookies, she's under a blanket, she's comfy. And that's when her husband tells her that he just saw her walk into their daughter's room. And he was really confused when this happened because it looked just like her, except for some reason, she had long black hair. Over the next couple of months, her husband swears this keeps happening. Like he will see the back of her head, except it's never the back of her head. She just has this long black hair, but she's always wearing the same clothes and it looks just like her. And she'll be walking into a room as he's kind of like walking past. In October of 2021, she gave birth to their first child, their daughter, and she found out shortly after that she was pregnant with their son. And nothing happens until about a month after her son is born in 2022. And of course, it was one of those times where her husband was gone in the field and she's going to the bathroom. I don't know why the bathroom is attached to so many weird happenings in this place, but as she's in there, she hears a sound coming from her daughter's nursery. Now this is really concerning because when it happened the first time, she was pregnant with her daughter. Now her daughter like lives in that room. And so she immediately gets up from the bathroom. She's going down the hall to investigate. And it sounds like there's something tapping in her daughter's room. My cat has joined us for the story, but she goes into her daughter's room. She's like, "What is this tapping sound?" And that's when she realizes it's the blinds in her daughter's room, like hitting the window over and over and over again, as if somebody is sitting there and like moving them back and forth. She also then notices that her daughter is like upright in her crib. Her hair is a mess. Her daughter is like freaking out, crying. So she immediately scoops her daughter up. She takes her to the bedroom. She has her other child in there. Both of the babies are crying and screaming and everybody's freaked out. And she's on the phone with her in-laws. Like, what do I do? Her father-in-law comes to the home to come check things out, just make sure everything's okay. And of course, nobody's there. She's kind of like, "I'm sorry I called you out. I swear to you, I know what I heard." And shortly after this, that apartment, that place where they lived, actually got broken into. And so they immediately moved to a townhome, which is where the rest of this story takes place. She probably at this time wasn't thinking much about the paranormal activity and the weird mimic stuff from the last place because they're in a new home and she had bigger fish to fry. Like their place actually got broken into. But she would sometimes notice that her daughter's closet light would be on when she would enter into the room, and she just would ignore it. She was like, I don't really want to bring this energy into the new place. I'm not going to acknowledge it. Until one day her husband calls out to her and he says, were you just watching me go to the bathroom? And she calls back from the living room. She's like, no, I'm on my phone. I'm watching YouTube in the living room. And he says, I saw you again like last time, but this time you were peeking around the door at me while I was using the bathroom. And of course, she's freaked out because her husband just saw that thing again after so much time without any activity. And so she starts cleansing the space pretty routinely, and the activity dies down again. And once again, she's like, okay, we're in the clear. And then there's an incident where they have a bunch of guests over and her daughter drops a glass, and she decides to put her daughter into her room in this new townhouse just so they can clean up the glass and she won't get hurt on any of it. Her husband is like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. You stay with her. And so she stays in the room with her daughter. They're like laying on the floor playing with toys when suddenly her daughter sits up. And she's like a year and a half, 2 years at this point. And she lets out this blood-curdling scream while looking into her closet, the same closet where the lights had been coming on occasionally. And the original person who sent me this email doesn't know why. She walks around this room and she's telling whatever this is, like, no, leave her alone, get out of here. Eventually, her daughter calms down. And at the time of sending me this email, she had said that her husband was leaving for 9 months. And she felt like the thing was going to act up again once he was gone. I didn't find this email until literally like today, and it was sent a year ago. So I'm going to email her back and ask if anything else happened. But in my original email, she asked for advice. So if you guys have any ideas for how to get rid of this thing, if she's still dealing with it, let her know down below. She'll probably read the comments. But yeah, this is such a terrifying mimic story. So what do you think? Stay spooky, friends.
I think you don't answer the mimic. That's what I think. I think we act like there was no mimic. Yeah, I think that's what we do. What the? I don't even want to. I don't even think I want to cook that. We're going to go over to this. Wait, I was trying to figure this out and I got confused. Okay. Let's do road trip. YouTube, can you guys still see this? Okay. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Oh,
Customary for students from other campuses to make the drive to bigger schools for that one day. I've never really been one to party like that, so it was never something I did. But a few months ago, I realized it was my senior year and I'd never get the chance to go again. So when they asked me if I wanted to come with them to Santa Barbara's Deltopia, I decided to say screw it and just went. We drove down that Friday afternoon, the day before all the major festivities. The car was completely packed out. Hunter was driving, and the other friends joining us were Damon, Benjamin, and Armand. We're all above 6 feet tall, so the journey was painfully cramped, but it went by quickly with some good conversation and music. Once we got to Isla Vista, we spent the better part of an hour looking for parking with no luck. I'm not exaggerating about the parking situation. That's how popular Deltopia is. Just as we were about to give up, Hunter activated his charm and convinced a sorority girl to let us park in her designated spot. We all got a good chuckle out of that. So everything was going according to plan.
Like y'all are all
Hunter's sister is a junior at UCSB, and she agreed to let us all crash on the floor of her apartment. That might sound a little ratchet to some, but during Deltopia, having a place to sleep is practically a golden ticket. Her and all of her roommates were super chill, so we decided to party with them that night, even though Deltopia technically didn't start until the next morning.
Oh my
There's
gosh,
one more thing I have to mention.
I've
Hunter
heard
is a really friendly guy,
this
and
so
because of that,
happy.
a ton of people know him. He has this one friend named Amir who's a little problematic. I'm using the word friend pretty generously here. Amir is one of those guys who clings to social circles without ever really being a part of them. He's insecure, loud, oblivious, constantly seeking validation, and somehow makes every conversation about himself. And before you call me out for gossiping, Amir has done a lot of messed up stuff to my friends and I in the past, so I've earned the right. Amir had mentioned to Hunter a while back that he was also going to Deltopia. There was never any real conversation about where he'd be staying or who he was going with. He wasn't part of our plan, and none of us had brought him up on the drive down. About an hour after the crew settled into Hunter's sister's place, we decided to make an alcohol run for ourselves and her roommates. As the 5 of us were leaving the liquor store with our purchases, who do we see but Amir, just standing there on the curb with his hands in his pockets. No one said anything. We just kept walking towards the apartment, and he sort of fell in step with us, like he'd been there the entire time. The first thing out of Amir's mouth, once we were a few blocks away from the store, was, "Why are you guys so surprised to see me?" Was this kid brain dead? Of course we were surprised to see him. There was never any plan to meet up with Amir,
creepy at
let
all.
alone hang out with him. And as far as any of us knew, Hunter hadn't even told him where we were staying. We all kind of ignored him and just kept walking, unsure of how this was going to play out. Things immediately escalated once we got back to the apartment.
It's like
Amir asked if he could use the bathroom at our apartment, and then ran ahead of us when Hunter reluctantly agreed. When Hunter's sister answered the door, Amir walked right up to her and said, "I'm staying here," before stepping past her without waiting for a response. She obviously didn't know who Amir was, but just assumed he was part of our group. When Hunter realized Amir had lied to his sister, he was livid.
I'd love to
I could go into extreme detail about what happened first, but here's all you need to know. Hunter told him straight up he had to leave, that he wasn't welcome there, and that lying to his sister was crossing a line. Amir didn't go quietly. He stood outside the door for another 20 minutes, trying to argue his way back in. Hunter's not the guy you want to mess around with, so Amir eventually took the hint and left.
kick them out.
We got wasted after that, and admittedly, Amir was all any of us could talk about. We realized later that night that Hunter had been sharing his iPhone location with Amir, meaning Amir had stalked us to the apartment.
Oh my god.
But anyway, the next day was a blast. Deltopia certainly lived up to the hype. Most of the shenanigans were done by late afternoon, so we met up with 5 of our other friends, and the 10 of us found ourselves chilling back at Hunter's sister's apartment. We filled the rest of the guys in about the Amir situation, and they found it just as odd as we did. One of our other friends, Rylan, said he was pretty sure he had Amir's location.
Hey,
He immediately checked it, and his jaw actually dropped. He turned the phone towards us, and I swear to God, the little blue dot was showing up basically on top of us. As soon as we mentioned it, though, the dot started moving away quickly, like Amir had been spying on us from a car and was now driving away. It was bizarre. Him showing up a second time was borderline psychotic, especially after Hunter had explained to him why he wasn't welcome there. We probably should have taken the whole thing more seriously than we did. That behavior was extreme, even for Amir. Instead, we all just laughed about his weird obsessiveness and continued partying. That night, after we had all crashed, I woke up randomly sometime well after midnight. I barely had time to process my surroundings when I heard glass shattering from somewhere deeper in the apartment. I shot up off the floor, looking around to see if anyone else was awake. No one was, probably because everyone had gone to sleep completely wasted. I realized pretty quickly that no one else had heard it, and if someone had broken in, I was the only one who could do anything about it. I didn't have a weapon or anything, so I just grabbed an empty wine bottle off the floor, took a deep breath, and started creeping toward the noise. My heart was pounding. When I entered the living room, I saw the sliding door that led to the balcony had been completely shattered.
Oh,
A huge
hell.
rock sat in the middle of the floor, surrounded by glinting shards of glass. I didn't need convincing. I knew Amir was behind it.
Better catch these fish.
I went to go wake my friends up when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a closet door handle jiggle a little.
No, hell no.
I froze, more scared than I had been just moments before. I didn't
just
think Amir
realized
had the guts to go
we went
beyond destroying property,
Paranormal to
and
horror.
the thought that he had broken into the apartment terrified me. I was just about to yank the closet door open when my better judgment forced me not to. Instead, I snuck back to the bedroom, woke Hunter up, and told him to back me up. The two of us walked towards the living room, but by the time we got there, the closet door was wide open. I looked around frantically, but I didn't see him. That's when Hunter reached into the closet and pulled out this massive kitchen knife. I stared in shock. Amir had literally been standing behind the door with a knife, probably intending to injure me. He could have literally ended my life had I opened that closet door. That was the most horrifying moment of my life. Hunter and I woke the rest of the house up, and we did a sweep to be 100% sure that Amir was nowhere in the apartment. We obviously got the police involved, but all that really came of that was just getting a police report. They told us property tends to get destroyed during Deltopia, and we were one of the many victims. Before you ask, Amir had stopped sharing his location with Rylan, so we couldn't even show the police that. We had to leave the next morning. Hunter was freaked out about leaving his sister and her roommates there, especially knowing that Amir had managed to sneak in there once already. Before we got in the car, he pulled out his phone and typed out this massive paragraph to Amir. I'm not going to air it out here, but you can guess what was said. The message never delivered, though. Amir had already blocked him. We all pulled out our phones and realized we had all been blocked too. Over the next few weeks, none of us heard from him. It was like he had fallen off the map completely. I still can't wrap my head around all of this. As aggressive as Amir often pretends to be, he doesn't have a history of violence. In fact, I've always thought of him as a little passive. He knows where all of us live, so I'm still worried, even while writing this out, that he's going to do something drastic. I'll send an update should something happen.
Oh, nope.
My name is Arthi. This happened a pretty long time ago, but I'd say I still remember about 90% of the details vividly. It was late April 1996. I was fresh out of basic training, and I had just been assigned to an airbase as a communications specialist in San Angelo, Texas. Being stationed in Texas was great for me. I'm originally from Mississippi, and part of the reason I enlisted in the first place was to get as far away from home as possible. I was 24 years old at the time. My closest friends on base were a guy named Seabass and a girl named Kay. I've since lost touch with them, but back then, the three of us were inseparable. It was a warm weekend, sometime in early April, when Seabass proposed taking a road trip to Austin for the day to experience a change of scenery. Kay and I were also getting sick of the base life monotony, so we agreed. Kay offered to drive, so we packed her SUV with our stuff and hit the road that same afternoon.
It is too early to be.
About an hour into the drive, we were on a mostly empty stretch of highway when Seabass spoke up. He asked us if we had seen the car behind us pull up from the shoulder right after we had passed. I looked back and saw a dark-colored Tahoe or something similar trailing us at a steady distance. I hadn't seen it pull off the shoulder, but being as we were on the highway, it wasn't exactly the weirdest thing. But then Kay changed lanes just to see, and the SUV followed. She did it again a minute later, and again, it mirrored her move.
Like I have your.
I was confused at first, but then a minute later, the SUV put its lights on, and everything made sense. We were getting pulled over by an undercover cop. Kay pulled over, and I watched as the cop pulled over behind us.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty observant person. Processing information quickly is something I was quite literally trained to do. So I instantly realized something was off. The guy who stepped out didn't look like any cop I'd ever seen. He was wearing all black tactical gear, but nothing on him that said police. The only thing even remotely official looking about his uniform was a patch on his arm that said something I couldn't read. He didn't behave like a normal officer either. Instead of approaching Kay's window, he stood behind the car like he was waiting for something. I watched him a little while longer and realized he wasn't just standing behind the car, but was actively analyzing it. He was looking through the rear window like he was trying to see the stuff we packed. He was also checking out Kay's bumper stickers and her license plate. Seabass and Kay eventually caught on to the officer's strange behavior too, and Seabass rolled his window down before asking the officer if there was a problem. Instead of responding, the officer swiftly walked up to Kay's window and asked for her license and registration. Kay reluctantly gave it to him. He walked back to his vehicle and didn't return for a really long time. The three of us started whispering about how strange this whole encounter was getting, but we weren't sure what to do. After what felt like forever, the guy finally exited his car again, only this time, 2 other men stepped out with him. I could feel my heartbeat ticking up, so I did some focused breathing to keep calm. The original officer walked back up to Kay's window and asked her if her father was in the army or something. Kay asked for clarification, and the officer mentioned the U.S. military bumper sticker on the back of her car. Kay laughed and said that she was the one in the military, then turned to Seabass and I and said, them too. The moment Kay mentioned we were all in the military, I noticed a shift. The guy at her window didn't say anything right away, but his body language stiffened. He glanced back at the other 2 men, who were still standing near the rear of the SUV, and then he glanced back at Kay. There was a weird silence for a second, and then he just told Kay that he was letting her off with a warning and to drive more slowly. He handed back Kay's license and turned around without another word. The 3 of them got back in the car, and before Kay could even start her engine, the Tahoe pulled off and sped away. The 3 of us were dumbfounded. Seabass couldn't stop talking about how those guys weren't real officers. They would have done something shady had we all been civilians. There really wasn't much more we could do, so Kay just got back on the highway. Austin was actually a really good time, and by the time we got back to base, we had all but forgotten about the stop. It wasn't until about a week later that I was reminded of it. I was sitting in the rec room watching the local news with Seabass when a story came on that made me freeze up. Apparently, a man and woman had been found dead in a ditch along a stretch of highway just outside of San Angelo. According to the reporter, the victims had been robbed and murdered, and investigators believed they were dumped there the night before. What really got me, though, was the next part. The vehicle found abandoned near the scene was a black Tahoe. Police confirmed it had been reported stolen months earlier, several states away. Seabass and I instantly went to find Kay, and the 3 of us agreed we had to tell the police about what we had seen. We told the police everything, and part of me felt a surge of guilt for not telling them sooner. And to this day, I still think about how Kay's bumper sticker may have saved our lives that day. I can't help but think about how easily it could have been us in that ditch had we not been military.
Because I am Cheryl. I am 52 and I'm from Wisconsin. If that happened, once again, fuck that. Fuck that.
I've always been a really private person. That's part of the reason I've waited so long to put this story out there. I can't think of many worse things than this story getting traced back to me somehow, but I was recently thinking about how it would be a shame to leave this earth without circulating. So here it goes. I just want people to know that I'm really stepping out of my comfort zone doing this. About 10 years ago, I was on a solo road trip from West Patterson, New Jersey to Fort Worth, Texas. I was on the way to visit my parents, whom I hadn't seen in a while. I'd moved out of Fort Worth years earlier and hadn't been back much since, so this trip felt overdue. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere, maybe Arkansas or the edge of Oklahoma, I can't really remember exactly, my car started acting up. I tried to ignore it for a while, but eventually I had no choice but to pull over. There wasn't much around, just trees, open field, and a long empty road behind me. I popped the hood and started poking around, pretending I knew what I was doing. I didn't. I was just sort of killing time, but I didn't want to admit that I was basically helpless. I figured I'd poke around for a bit, and once that failed, I'd call AAA. I didn't actually have AAA, so I was really pissed because I knew they'd charge me an arm and a leg. A few minutes later, though, I heard a car pulling up behind me. It was a nondescript white pickup truck. I remembered noting to myself that it didn't have a front plate, or at least not one I could see. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. If I had to guess, I'd say he was in his mid-30s, maybe a little older, but worn down in a way that made him seem older than he probably was. He had curly hair and a long, uneven beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in years. He seemed like the kind of guy you could tell worked with his hands a lot, if that makes any sense. He honestly kind of looked like an older version of me. Same build, same height, same hair color, just a bit less well-groomed than I am. He walked over slowly, giving my car a once-over as he approached. He didn't ask if I needed help so much as assume it. Before I even said anything, he was already leaning over the engine like he knew what he was doing. I spoke up and told him what happened, then thanked him for stopping to help me. He told me he was a mechanic, and based on how quickly he got to work, I didn't question it.
Disturbing true
I was already thinking about how I could repay him for the help when he said something that kind of surprised me.
after this.
After a minute or two of fiddling, he stepped back and gave the engine a look that didn't exactly inspire confidence. He muttered something about needing a compression tester.
We'll put them
Apparently, without it, the car wasn't going to start no matter what. Then he glanced over to his truck and said his friend, another mechanic, might be able to bring one over.
Wait a second.
I honestly had no idea what the part even was that he was talking about, but he seemed genuine, so I believed him.
Yeah.
I thanked him again, and he pulled out his phone, presumably to call his buddy.
I'm moving to Saturday.
He froze up for a few seconds while looking at his phone screen, then put his phone back in his pocket, saying it was dead.
We might be moving to
He then asked if he could borrow mine to make the call.
normally true.
I didn't even think twice about it. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and handed it to him without a second thought. He took it with one hand, and then, almost in the same motion, he reached into his jacket with the other and pulled out a gun. I instantly knew what was about to happen. He didn't say much, just told me to sit down on the shoulder and not try anything stupid. His voice didn't shake. He'd clearly done something like this before, or at least thought about it enough for it to seem practiced. I did what he said. The whole thing felt strangely calm, like we were both just going through something totally normal. He rifled through my pockets and took my wallet, my backpack from the passenger seat, and even had me show him the password to my phone.
Ooh.
Then he drove off, and that was that. I had literally just been robbed on the side of the road. I know I'm speaking about it calmly now, but you best believe I was livid at the time. I don't think even now I've ever been more angry in my life. Unfortunately, there's more to this story. Much more. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but someone eventually did stop and help me. After getting my car started, they were even nice enough to give me directions all the way to my parents' house so I could do it without my phone. I made it to Fort Worth later that night, and given the circumstances, my visit with my parents was actually really nice. The next few were a blur of canceling cards, replacing IDs, updating passwords, and basically recovering everything I'd lost.
I don't think
It was annoying and time-consuming, but I eventually squared away as much as I possibly could, and I got on with my life. Fast forward like 6 months, that's when things started to hit the fan. One day, I got a letter in the mail from some bank I didn't recognize. It was addressed to me, thanking me for opening a new line of credit. I figured it was a scam at first, or just some kind of junk mail, but then another one came. This time from Best Buy, with a card I'd supposedly opened and already racked up over $1,000 on. The charges were all from a random town in Tennessee. At first, I was more confused than anything, but that's when it hit me. I had forgotten until that exact moment that my Social Security card was likely in my wallet when I had gotten robbed. And now, the guy who had robbed me had everything he needed to become me. The next month of my life was a living hell. My credit report was a mess. Hard inquiries, new cards, balances I didn't spend. It felt like every day there was something new. If any of you have dealt with identity theft, you know how hopeless it can seem. I filed a report with the FTC, placed a fraud alert on all 3 credit bureaus, and even froze my credit. I went to the police and gave them everything I had, but without a name or a license plate, they apparently couldn't do a thing.
I keep mine in the house.
I filed a formal report anyway, just to have a paper trail. I even called the local police departments in each of the towns where fraud had occurred. I followed every step you're supposed to follow, but somehow it wasn't enough. Things kept escalating. Whoever was stealing my identity was being extremely cautious about it. A few weeks later, I got a call from my health insurance provider. Someone had received emergency care under my name at a hospital in Georgia. It wasn't just a billing issue. There were now records in my file that didn't belong to me. Stuff that could actually screw me over if I ever landed in the hospital and couldn't speak for myself. I obviously reported everything to the police again, but that was the last straw for me. I decided to take matters into my own hands. From then on, I transformed my whole lifestyle and spent every ounce of my free time trying to track down the perpetrator myself. I set up Google alerts for my name and any recent cities tied to the fraud. I checked my credit report constantly. I scanned forums and dug through social media. I did everything I could think of. One night, on a whim, I decided to start checking Craigslist. I focused on cities tied to the fraud, places where charges had shown up from or mail had come from. After looking around for a while, something caught my eye. It was a posting from Jackson, Tennessee. The listing was for a bunch of used power tools and some other miscellaneous items. I wasn't sure why it stood out to me so much, but the longer I looked, the more familiar it seemed. And then it clicked. Everything listed matched up perfectly with some of the things that had been charged to that Best Buy card. I sat there for a while, unsure what to do. Eventually, I responded to the listing, saying I was interested in a couple of the items and asked if they were still available. I debated trying to attach a tracker link or something clever, but I didn't want to spook whoever it was. If it was him, and he got even a hint that someone was onto him, he'd vanish. So I kept it simple. To my surprise, it didn't seem like the guy was onto me at all. After exchanging some emails over the next few days, he gave me a time and a public place to meet, and he told me to bring cash. The meeting was supposed to be the next day.
Bring cash.
I debated driving all the way to Tennessee myself, but I couldn't bring myself to.
Hell no, don't.
There's no telling what I would have done to that guy had I seen him in person a second time. So instead, I called the police department in Jackson to see if they remembered my case. They did, and I basically pleaded with them to help me out. I gave them everything I had, damn near prayed. By some miracle, they told me the details lined up just well enough for it to be worthwhile. They said they'd at least talk to him and see if there was any information they could get out of him. The next day, after a little back and forth, I got the guy to tell me he was driving a red pickup truck. I communicated that with the police and waited. After legitimately several hours, they called me. When they told me what had happened, I wanted to drop on my knees, I swear on my life. The officer told me that as soon as the guy spotted the patrol cars near the meetup spot, he immediately sped out of the lot. He didn't even try to play it cool. That alone was enough to raise red flags, so they followed him. Not long after, the guy ended up losing control of his truck and crashing into a ditch. It wasn't a major accident, but it was enough to get officers legally involved beyond just a casual questioning. According to them, he was a total wreck, visibly shaken, panicking, talking in circles, you get it. As soon as they even mentioned the Best Buy items, he folded. He admitted he didn't know where the stuff had come from, that it wasn't his, and that a friend had given it to him, and he had independently decided to resell it. It could not have been more perfect. The guy ratted out his friends, and with his cooperation, the police were able to acquire enough evidence to arrest the real perp. I've never felt more relief in my life. Like I said earlier, I'm not trying to have this traced back to me, so I'm going to keep things vague from here on out. I will say this much, though. The guy who robbed me wasn't acting alone. Turns out there were 3 of them total. The craziest part is that I wasn't the only victim. From what I was told, they'd been targeting travelers and isolated drivers up and down a few different interstate corridors, mostly in the south. Eventually, all 3 of them were caught, charged, and put in jail. I'm not going to say much more than that, but what I will say is justice was served.
Hell yeah. Let's go to Mr. Nightmare. I'm not watching Home Alone stories. Nope. Uh-uh. Let's see. Let's go to videos. Okay, do we want coworker horror stories? Or do we want hiking horror stories? Coworker or hiking? We haven't watched Sam and Kobe yet. Okay. Oh my God, Lily, you just said yes. That doesn't help. Okay. We'll do coworker. And my sister just said yes. Like, that helps.
Back when I was 20, during the summer before my senior year of college, I landed an internship at a financial services firm downtown. It wasn't anything fancy, mostly data entry, spreadsheets, and sitting in front of a computer all day, but it paid decently and it looked great on a resume. There were 7 other interns behind me, and we were all crammed together in this open office section with rows of vehicles that didn't quite give you privacy, just enough to make small talk feel optional. Out of the 7, 5 of them were people I liked, a mix of chill, down-to-earth college students who didn't take the internship too seriously. Another guy, Eric, was the type who treated the whole thing like it was life or death, barely spoke, and was always typing like his keyboard owed him money. But the 7th intern, Alex, was something else entirely.
Money.
When I first met Alex,
Right.
he seemed normal enough. Maybe a little awkward, but we all were at the beginning. He was tall, thin, kind of pale, and had this mop of dark hair that always looked a little unwashed. He didn't really fit the finance intern stereotype, but that's not what threw me off.
We can watch.
It was the way he acted around me. At first, it was subtle. He'd pop up at my cubicle during the day, lean over the divider in a way that made him look freakishly tall, like 7 feet tall because the cubicle walls were low and only his head would be visible above it. He'd tilt his head slightly, grin with a strange frozen smile, and start talking in this deliberately weird voice, like he was trying to sound creepy on purpose. I'd laugh it off awkwardly, pretending I thought it was funny, but I remember thinking it was an odd thing to do in a professional setting. He'd say random stuff, like working hard or hardly working, Ronnie, in that slow, unnatural tone, and then hold the smile for way too long. The first couple of times, I figured he was just being quirky or trying too hard to stand out. Some people at internships are awkward like that, so I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But then it started happening more often.
Yeah, I'm awkward.
Every single day, at least once, I'd see his head slowly rise above my cubicle wall.
Jack the killer.
That same stretched grin plastered across his annoying face, and he'd start some bizarre conversation that didn't make sense. Sometimes he'd make jokes that weren't funny, or mutter random phrases that didn't relate to anything. And every time, he used that same unsettling voice, like a soft voice in a kind of taunting way.
Oh, I just realized.
Honestly, a very good
Oops, my bad.
recent comparison of the voice he was doing was the voice Charlie Hunnam did for his role as Ed Gein. The other interns noticed it too, but they mostly laughed it off, thinking Alex was being weird on purpose to lighten the mood. I also think they thought Alex and I had built some kind of rapport that the rest of them didn't build with him. There was something about the way he directed it only at me that made me feel uncomfortable. It's not like I treated him any differently. It was like I was his personal audience for whatever creepy act he was trying to pull. As the weeks went on, his visits got longer. He'd lean over and stay there for minutes at a time, staring at me while talking, sometimes not even saying much, just looking. I'd fake a laugh, say I had to finish a report, and hope he'd get the hint. He rarely did. Then one night, about 6 weeks into the internship, I was home eating dinner when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I normally don't answer unknown calls, but since I was expecting a delivery confirmation, I picked it up. When I said hello, all I heard for a few seconds was silence. Then suddenly, I heard a voice I recognized immediately. It was Alex's voice. The same forced, creepy tone he always used in the office.
We can watch it.
He said, "The tide's coming in. Pull your butt out of the water." But this time, his voice was a little louder, almost a yell. He dragged the words out like he was reciting a riddle, and then he burst out laughing this insanely unhinged laugh before hanging up. The thing that made my skin crawl wasn't just the call. It was the fact that I never gave Alex my number, not once. The next thing I did was text the number back, asking if this was Alex, but the text said not delivered, and when I looked it up, it was a landline number. That's when I really started to get freaked out. How did he get my number? Why was he calling me like that? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he found it through a company contact sheet or something. But even then, the way he said that line didn't sit with me. I couldn't stop replaying the sound of his laugh in my head. It didn't sound like someone joking around. It sounded like he was f***ing with me to the point of trying to actually scare me. This wasn't just goofy behavior anymore. That Monday, when I got to the office, Alex wasn't there. His desk was empty, and I didn't see him all morning. I went to our supervisor, a guy named Martin, and I asked him if Alex might have gotten my number through the company. And Martin was very confused, saying interns didn't have access to employee info like that. On top of that, they'd let Alex go at the end of the previous week because he wasn't doing any work and had ignored multiple warnings. That's when I told him about the call. He seemed surprised, and some of the other interns overheard. A couple of them started nodding and saying they always thought Alex was creepy, that he'd made them uncomfortable too. I told them about the weird cubicle visits, the voice, everything. Martin said not to worry, that Alex was gone for good and had no reason to come back. So that was a little comforting. For the next week or so, I kept expecting something else to happen. A message, a random encounter, something.
I need like
But
a
nothing
story,
came.
like another device
Life at the office went back to normal.
that we're still live.
I figured maybe that was really the end of it. Until one early morning. It was a Friday, around 5 a.m. Still dark outside, except for a thin gray light creeping in through the blinds. I woke up because I thought I'd heard something, maybe a noise from outside. It made me get up and look out my window. I wish I hadn't. Standing in my backyard, halfway between the trees and the porch light, was a figure looking up at my window. Even though it was barely light out, I could tell who it was immediately. The thin frame and the messy hair, the way he stood perfectly straight. It was Alex. For a few seconds, I could not move. I just stared at him, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And then, clear as day, I heard him call out my name in that same creepy, performative voice he'd always used at work. He dragged it out, long and sing-songy. I grabbed my phone, about to call 911, when I saw him tilt his head back and start laughing. That same loud, hysterical laughter like he did on the phone before hanging up. It didn't sound right. It sounded like someone completely detached from reality. I shouted through the window, yelling at him that I was calling the police and to get the hell off my property. I also waved my phone out the window. He just stood there for a second longer, then turned and started walking away, still laughing as he disappeared into the trees behind my house. I called the police, and in short, the dispatcher asked me if he was still there. When I said no, she told me to call back if he came back or threatened to break in. I never saw him again after that.
Oh, thank God.
Not at work, not around town, nowhere.
It's like disappeared.
The police couldn't do much since he hadn't technically broken in or made a direct threat. It was one of those situations where you just have to live with the unease, hoping it's over. The rest of the summer passed without incident. I finished the internship, and on the last day, my boss pulled me aside to offer me a permanent position for after graduation. At the time, I accepted, though a small part of me felt unsettled about ever going back to that office again. I never told them about what had happened that morning. I didn't see the point. Alex was gone, and no one even knew where he'd ended up. Over time, I convinced myself that he must have been dealing with some kind of mental illness or social disorder, something that made him act that way. It's the only way I can make sense of how he went from a quiet, awkward intern to standing in my backyard at 5 a.m, laughing like a lunatic. It's been a few years now, and I've moved on from it. I didn't end up with that company. I got a different job after graduation. I don't think about this too often anymore, but sometimes the thought of that image of him in my backyard still skeeves me out. I still wonder how he got my number, how he found my address, and what he wanted that morning. I guess it's not that hard to get people's info online these days. All I know is that for a few months in my life, I worked alongside someone who wasn't just strange. He had something way deeper going on. And no matter how many years pass, I'll never forget the sound of him laughing in the dark, as if it was all one big joke that only he understood.
Well, it's just creepy. That's just way too creepy.
I was 17 when this all happened. It was my first real job, working at a local grocery store in our quiet Vermont town. The kind of town where everyone knew everyone else, and where nothing ever really happened. I liked the job at first. It was simple, and most of my coworkers were friendly. I quickly fell into a rhythm with the cashiers and some of the stock workers, especially during the slow hours when there weren't many customers. When that happened, we'd all gather near the front of the store, just chatting about random stuff like what we watched on TV, making fun of the older, quirkier employees, and complaining about customers.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
I am.
It was one of the few times during my shifts where I felt like I wasn't just standing behind a register staring at a screen or a blank wall all day. Depending on who was the shift supervisor for the day, it would either be relaxed or more strict. Like if a younger supervisor was working, it would be more chill. People would be on their phones and people would socialize by the front. There was one coworker who I didn't know well at first, a guy named Sean. He was 24, a little awkward, the kind of guy who always seemed like he didn't quite know how to read social cues. He had longer hair, but kind of in the awkward in-between phase, like he was growing it out, but didn't quite reach his shoulders yet. He worked in the dairy section, so we didn't interact much at work. He was quiet and polite enough, and I honestly didn't think much of him. Most people just nodded at him when they walked past, and he did the same. But eventually, I was added to a coworker group chat, and he was in it. I didn't think twice about it. It was just a chat for work stuff and dumb jokes, and it seems most of the younger employees were in there. But then Sean started messaging me directly. At first, it was harmless. He asked about my shifts, whether I was covering certain days, things like that. But over the next few weeks, it became clear he was trying to get closer. He started asking questions about my personal life, like what music I liked, what I do after work, even little things like what I did over the weekend. Again, I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, people make small talk, right? But the tone was off. Sometimes he'd call me cute in ways that made me uncomfortable. Sometimes he'd make jokes that were slightly flirty. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe he just didn't know how to behave with girls my age. That's another thing. I was only 17. He was decently older than me, and I don't think anyone else knew he was flirting with me like that. It didn't take long before the behavior became slightly annoying. He'd comment on things I posted online, and sometimes the messages were late at night. Not threatening, not really, but there was this persistence in him that made me uneasy. I didn't know how to tell him to back off without making it awkward at work, so I mostly ignored him. Don't shit where you eat, I always hear people say. One day, I was at home watching Stranger Things, my favorite show still to this day. I'd been catching up on the latest season, binge watching episodes in my bedroom, just completely lost in the show. And then a couple days later at work, everyone was gathered at the front of the store chatting about TV shows. I was talking with a few of the cashiers about some random series when Sean suddenly asked me, "You like Stranger Things, right?" I froze. I couldn't remember telling anyone at work about my show. I just nodded, trying to brush it off, but it left this cold feeling in my stomach. How did he know? I didn't say anything. I did make eye contact for a moment. He just smiled awkwardly and eventually left the front of the store back to the dairy section like nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me more than I had realized. It wasn't until a few nights later that the fear really started. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep after a long day at work. The house was quiet, and then I heard a soft scraping noise against my bedroom window. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe a branch brushing against the glass. But then I heard it again. A distinct sound of someone tapping on the window, just lightly enough for it to be unnerving. I got up and peeked through the blinds, half expecting to see Sean out there, but there was nothing. I tried to convince myself the sound was nothing to be alarmed about, but the thought of Sean's question at work, about Stranger Things, a show I hadn't told anyone about, it kept running through my head. A couple of days later, He texted me again. This time I didn't ignore it. I told him clearly and firmly that I wasn't interested. That was when things escalated. Almost immediately, he replied, "Okay, good luck changing your address." I couldn't believe it. In one insane text that he clearly sent before thinking of the repercussions, he proved my suspicions right. I saved the messages and took screenshots. I went straight to my manager and explained everything. My manager was shocked. He told me not to worry, that they'd handle it. I also went with my dad to the local police department to file a report, showing them the messages and explaining the incident with the window, explaining that I suspected Sean might be stalking me. The next day at work, Sean was called in by our boss. He didn't come back. It turned out he was fired on the spot, and the police started the paperwork for a restraining order. I thought maybe that would be the end of it, but I quickly realized that nothing really felt over. Even with the restraining order in place, if he was actually a crazy person, what's a piece of paper gonna do to stop him from coming back to the house and doing something crazy? I double-checked locks obsessively, refused to answer any calls or messages from unknown numbers, and avoided talking about my routines with anyone except family. The weeks dragged on like that. I would wake up at night convinced I heard something outside. I had to remind myself constantly that the restraining order was legally binding, that he couldn't come near me, but the fear was real. Eventually, as the weeks turned into months, the paranoia started to fade. There were no incidents, no attempts to contact me, no sudden appearances. The restraining order seemed to hold, and life slowly returned to normal. I got more comfortable going out alone, stopped checking my window obsessively before bed, and eventually, I stopped thinking about Sean altogether. It took a long time, though, for me to feel fully safe again.
Why do I feel like
Even after moving on, the experience left a mark. I was hyper aware of my surroundings, cautious about new people I met, especially in situations where I felt isolated. I learned to trust my instincts and take any uncomfortable behavior seriously, no matter how small it seemed at first. Looking back, the thing that scares me most isn't that Sean might have actually harmed me. It's how quickly someone who seems normal, even awkward or harmless, can turn into a source of fear. It can start with small, seemingly innocent interactions, messages, questions, little comments, and escalate into something far more serious. Now, years later, I've moved past it. I work in a different town, live in a new apartment, and I don't think about that grocery store anymore. I don't talk to a single coworker from that job anymore. But the memory of those nights lying in bed, convinced someone was outside my window, it's not something that ever goes away entirely. It's a reminder of how quickly life can feel unsafe, even in a small, quiet town where nothing ever seems to happen. And while Sean never came close to doing anything physically, the psychological impact was enough to make me question how safe I ever truly was. So if you're ever at work and notice a coworker crossing a line, even subtly, take it seriously. Don't brush it off as awkwardness or harmless flirting. It might seem over the top at first, but it could save you from months of fear, or worse. Because sometimes the danger isn't obvious. But eventually, I did move on. And now, years later, I can look back and say I survived. And that's enough.
still creepy? Really?
I started working at a small insurance office in a quiet part of Pennsylvania. The kind of office that's tucked behind a strip mall with one long row of desks, flickering fluorescent lights, and the smell of coffee at all hours of the day. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I liked most of the people there. The job could get boring, especially on slow days when the phones barely rang, but it was easy money. I usually worked the day shift, but on this particular Friday, I was scheduled to help close up the office because we were behind on filing a batch of client records. There was a big storm warning that afternoon, the kind that takes over the entire local news broadcast. The moment I woke up and looked out the window that morning, I knew it was going to be a dark, stormy day.
Talking.
And around 3 o'clock, the rain started to pour so heavily you couldn't see the end of the street. The thunder came soon after, shaking the windows every few minutes. Honestly, I was personally enjoying the ambiance of the storm. Then the manager decided to let most of the employees leave early before it got worse, but a couple of us volunteered to stay to finish some paperwork. The only other person who stayed was a guy named Tom, who had just started working there about 2 weeks prior.
Once in a while, just go like,
He was in his early 30s, tall, quiet, and sort of off-putting in a way I couldn't describe. I wouldn't say creepy, just strange. He never said much to anyone, but he was always nearby. If I went to make coffee, he'd be there 2 minutes later. If I was restocking paper, he'd show up pretending to do the same thing. I figured he was just socially awkward. When 5 o'clock hit, the storm was in full force. I swear, every few seconds lightning flashed, followed by thunder that made the floor vibrate. The office felt emptier than usual, and the usual hum of lights was replaced by the sound of the storm. Tom was sitting at his desk a few rows down, typing something on his computer that looked like nonsense from where I sat. Every time I looked up, I could see him glancing over in my direction. At first, I tried to focus on my work, but after an hour or so, I realized I hadn't seen him get up once. Around 6:30, the power started flickering. Both of us made the same nervous laugh when the lights dimmed, but he didn't say anything. The next flicker lasted longer, and when the power finally went out completely, the office went silent except for the rain. The emergency lights kicked in, leaving everything bathed in a faint orange glow.
I'm like waving. Like
I said something about maybe it being a good time to head out, but Tom didn't respond. I heard the sound of keys jingling, and then the front door locking. He muttered something about how it wasn't safe to go outside right now. I thought maybe he was just trying to be helpful, but something about the way he said it gave me chills. I went to grab my bag and jacket, figuring I'd wait it out for a few minutes before heading home. The power outage made the whole building feel smaller. The emergency lights barely lit the hallways, and the storm outside was deafening. When I came back toward the front, Tom was standing near the door, just staring out into the dark parking lot. The rain was falling so heavily you couldn't see anything past the glass. I told him I was going to make a quick call to my boyfriend to let him know I'd be home soon. He didn't say anything again. He stood there staring out the window. I walked toward the break room, but when I tried using my phone, there was no signal. I figured the storm must have knocked out the tower. I tried the landline, but the line was dead too. I turned around to go back to the main office and nearly jumped when I saw Tom standing in the doorway. I hadn't even heard him walk up. He was holding a small flashlight under his chin, casting shadows up his face. He had this half smile, like he thought it was funny. I forced a nervous laugh and told him he scared me. I then asked him again about unlocking the door so I could leave, but he said something about it not being safe yet and how it was better to wait until the worst of the storm passed. I said fine, but inside I was starting to feel nervous. He kept watching me. I decided to move to my cubicle to pack up my stuff, pretending to be calm. I wanted to wait for a lull in the storm and then get out. When I looked up again a few minutes later, Tom was gone. I figured maybe he went to the restroom. I took the chance to head to the back door instead of the front one. I knew that one led to a small parking lot behind the building where my car was. When I reached it, I realized the handle wouldn't move. The door was chained shut from the inside, like someone had looped a chain and padlock around it. We had never done that before. I turned around and saw the faint glow of the flashlight coming from down the hallway. I ducked into the supply closet next to the break room and closed the door quietly, trying to keep my breathing under control. I could hear Tom walking slowly through the hall, and then I heard him call my name. He sounded like he was trying to sound comforting. He said he just wanted to make sure I was safe. I didn't move or say a word. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could probably hear it. He walked past the closet, and for a few seconds, I could see the thin strip of light from the flashlight shining under the door. Then it disappeared. A loud crack of thunder made the building shake. The sound of rain got even louder for a second, and I realized part of the roof above the break room must have been leaking. I waited, I'd estimate 10 minutes before I finally worked up the nerve to open the door a little. The hall was empty. The flashlight beam was gone. I stepped out carefully and made my way toward the front again. When I turned the corner, I froze. The front glass door had been shattered completely. Rain was blowing inside across the floor, soaking the carpet. Tom was nowhere in sight. I hesitated, wondering if he had gone outside, but then I realized this was my only chance. I ran out the door into the pouring rain and sprinted for my car. I didn't even care that I was getting drenched. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I sped out of the parking lot without looking back once. When I finally got home, I locked every door and sat in my living room shaking, watching the rain pour against my windows. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the office and told my manager what had happened. He didn't believe me at first, until he got there himself and saw the broken glass. He called the police, who showed up and took a statement from me when I was at the office. They said they'd look into it, but it sounded like Tom had just taken off. His car was still in the lot, unlocked, with the keys sitting on the driver's seat. His phone, wallet, and a few personal items were still inside. The security cameras had been turned off manually before the power outage, which meant he must have done it earlier in the night. Nobody ever saw him again. A few of my coworkers said maybe he had some kind of breakdown, but I couldn't stop wondering if he'd been planning something worse. I quit the job a month later. Even though nothing ever happened after that, I couldn't work in a small, enclosed place like that where I had experienced such a traumatic incident.
Right.
It just wasn't healthy.
Alrighty. We're gonna switch to Sam and Colby, but we're gonna log off of YouTube Live for the night on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching the YouTube, and I will see you next week. Bye. We're gonna end that one.